You know, the fuel in your car, the plastic in your phone, even the road you drive on. Have you ever really stopped to think about where it all comes from? It's an absolutely incredible origin story, a journey that started hundreds of millions of years ago, deep inside the Earth. So today, we're going to follow that one resource, crude oil, from its ancient beginnings all the way to becoming the bedrock of our modern world. Let's dive in.
To really get your head around oil, you've got to think on a truly planetary scale. I mean, this whole process didn't start in a factory. It started 300 million years ago, with countless tiny organisms living in ancient oceans. The energy we are using today is, and this is literal, ancient sunlight that was captured by life way before the first dinosaurs ever showed up. This mind-boggling timescale really sets the stage for everything that follows.
So, how in the world does the Earth take all that ancient life and turn it into what we call black gold? Well, this first part of our journey is all about that, the immense geological process that brews this incredibly potent energy source. Okay, think of it like a recipe that takes millions and millions of years to cook. Step 1. All those tiny marine organisms die and sink to the bottom of the sea. Step 2. They get buried under massive layers of sediment, which ramps up the heat and pressure like you wouldn't believe. Step 3 is the transformation. This intense underground pressure cooker cooks all that organic stuff first into a kind of waxy material called kerogen, and then, eventually, into liquid oil and gas. But the final step is absolutely key. The oil has to migrate into a porous rock, kind of like a giant underground sponge, and then get trapped there by a solid layer of cap rock that it can't get through. And that's where it sits, just waiting.
But here's the thing, this natural process doesn't make just one kind of oil, not even close. The stuff everyone wants is called light, sweet crude. It's got low sulfur, it's way easier to refine, and because of that, it's more valuable. Then you've got the other end of the spectrum, heavy, sour crude. It's dense, full of sulfur, and it needs a lot more complex and expensive processing. So where that oil comes from and how it was formed directly impacts its price tag on the world market.
Okay, so the Earth has done its part. The oil has been cooked and trapped underground for millions of years. Now the human part of the story begins. This next chapter is basically a high-tech treasure hunt, using some seriously incredible technology to find and pull this stuff up from miles below our feet. Geologists can't exactly see what's going on down there, right? So they have this amazing toolkit. The star of the show is seismic imaging. They send powerful sound waves deep into the ground and read the echoes to create these super detailed 3D maps of the rock layers, looking for those telltale traps. But even with the absolute best tech in the world, there's only one way to know for sure if you've actually found oil. You have to drill. That exploratory well, that's the ultimate moment of truth.
Finding it is just half the battle. Getting it out is a whole other challenge. In the beginning, the natural pressure in the reservoir does most of the work for you. That's primary recovery. When that starts to fade, you move to secondary recovery, where engineers pump water or gas back down to keep the pressure up and push more oil out. But for the really stubborn, hard-to-get oil, they bring out the big guns, enhanced oil recovery, or EOR. We're talking about using things like steam or special chemicals to basically wring out every last possible drop from that underground rock.
All right, once the oil is out of the ground, it's still just this thick, black, mostly useless raw material. Its next and most critical stop is the refinery. You can think of it as a massive, sprawling molecular factory where a kind of industrial alchemy happens, turning that crude into the fuels and products we all rely on every single day.
When you boil it all down, refining is really a three-stage process. First up is distillation. The crude oil is heated up in these gigantic towers, and it separates based on boiling points. The lightest stuff, like gasoline vapors, rises all the way to the top, while the heaviest gunk, like asphalt, stays at the bottom. Next is conversion. This is where processes with names like cracking use intense heat to break down big, heavy molecules into smaller, much more valuable ones, like gasoline. And finally, there's treatment. This is basically the cleanup stage, where they remove impurities like sulfur to make sure the final products are clean and high quality.
And it's pretty amazing what comes out of a single 42-gallon barrel of oil. Almost half of it, about 45%, becomes gasoline. Another 25% or so becomes diesel and heating oil. And about 10% is for jet fuel. But look closely at that 15% slice for other products, because that little slice is where oil's hidden story really begins. It's the source of the chemical building blocks for an unbelievable range of materials that define our modern lives.
And that brings us to what might be the most surprising part of this entire journey. You see, oil's impact goes so far beyond the gas pump.
It's secretly and profoundly woven into the very fabric of our world in ways you probably never even imagined.
I mean, this is where the story gets fascinating. Those other products are the unsung heroes of our world. They become things like life-saving pharmaceuticals and medical devices. All the plastics, from kids' toys to our electronics, the synthetic fibers in our clothes and carpets, detergents, paints, adhesives, even the fertilizers that are absolutely essential for feeding the planet. Seriously, just look around you right now. The paint on the wall, the computer you're on. You are surrounded by the descendants of crude oil. It's the hidden foundation of countless industries.
This quote just nails it perfectly. It captures the dual identity of oil. We tend to focus on it as an energy source, which it is, of course, but its job as a chemical feedstock, a raw material for making stuff, is arguably just as important and just as transformative. It's the one resource that both powers our world and builds it.
But the journey doesn't just end when you've burned the fuel or used the plastic bottle. Nope. The final chapters of this story are being written as we speak, and they're all about how we can reinvent oil's life cycle and redefine its role in a world that's constantly changing.
A huge idea shaping this future is the circular economy. So instead of the old way of doing things, take, make, and throw away, the goal here is to create a closed loop. We're talking about things like re-refining used motor oil so it can be used again, finding new ways to recycle plastics back into fuels or other chemicals, and making sure that every single byproduct from a refinery is treated as a new resource, not as waste.
And this isn't just some theory, it's already happening in some really clever ways. Used motor oil gets collected and re-refined into brand new, high-quality lubricant. That sludge at the bottom of refinery tanks, it gets treated to pull out valuable hydrocarbons that used to just be thrown away. And that sulfur we talked about removing during treatment, it gets processed and turned into essential fertilizer for farms. It's all about turning a waste stream into a value stream.
Now, of course, you can't talk about the future of oil without acknowledging the massive energy transition that's underway globally. As things like renewables and electric vehicles grow, oil's role as our main fuel source is starting to change. It's evolving, right? It's shifting from being the one dominant player to being a crucial piece of a much more diverse energy and material puzzle. And its role in making all that stuff we talked about is becoming more important than ever.
So, from a tiny organism that died 300 million years ago at the bottom of the ocean, all the way to the very device you're watching this on right now, crude oil's incredible journey has without a doubt built the modern world. So the question that leaves us with is this: as its epic story continues to evolve, what materials and what new sources of energy will build the world of tomorrow?